My name is Gail, and I am 29 years old. 3 years away from my family, and now I am back for Thanksgiving dinner. I built a successful career as a software engineer in Seattle, far from my parents, who always preferred my younger brother. They see me as nothing more than the family ATM while celebrating his every failure. Every family gathering ends the same way, with me nursing emotional wounds that never fully heal. As I walk into our crowded dining room, the familiar knot forms in my stomach. I know what comes next. Before I continue my story, where are you watching from? Hit that subscribe button if you have ever felt undervalued by family. Trust me, what happens next changed everything. The drive to my childhood home in suburban Michigan felt longer than the 3 years I had been away. Each mile closer made my hands grip the steering wheel tighter, my knuckles turning white from the pressure. November snow dusted the familiar streets where I grew up, making everything look deceptively peaceful. The modest two-story house with fading blue paint came into view, and I took a deep breath before pulling into the driveway. 3 years. 3 years of building my life in Seattle, of therapy sessions trying to undo the damage of always feeling second best. 3 years of declining holiday invitations with excuses about work deadlines. But this year, my therapist had suggested that facing my family might be the next step in my healing journey. So here I was, right back where I started. As I approached the front door, I could hear the commotion inside. The smell of turkey and pumpkin pie wafted through the air, along with the distinct scent of tension that always permeated family gatherings. I knocked, even though I could have walked right in. Somehow, it no longer felt like my home. My mother, Sarah, answered the door, her critical eyes scanning me from head to toe, before her lips stretched into a smile that never quite reached her eyes. "Gail, you finally decided to join us," she said, her tone making it clear that my absence had been noted and judged. "Everyone is already here." She wore a designer blouse I had never seen before, and a glint of something sparkly caught my eye. New diamond earrings, interesting for someone who had called me last month hinting about their struggling finances. I stepped into the house and was immediately engulfed in the chaos of the Taylor family Thanksgiving. The living room opened into the dining area, where a long table had been set up to accommodate everyone. My father, Robert, sat at the head of the table, deep in conversation with my Uncle Frank, his brother, and the only person who had consistently shown me kindness throughout my childhood. Dad glanced up, gave a quick nod of acknowledgement, then returned to his conversation. Typical. My brother Tyler, lounging in the corner with a beer in hand, looking as carefree as ever despite being 26 and between jobs again. He flashed his charming smile, the one that had always gotten him out of trouble, and secured him the golden child position in our family hierarchy. "Look who finally remembered she has a family," he called out, raising his beer in mock salute. I forced a smile and continued scanning the room. Aunt Judy, my mother's sister, watched the interaction with observant eyes. She had always been kind but never intervened in the family dynamics. Her husband and their 2 children were there with their partners, all witnesses to the ongoing family drama. "Gail, you look thin," my mother commented as she guided me toward the kitchen. "Seattle must be working you too hard. Not that you ever tell us anything about your life there." Before I could respond, she was pulling me into the kitchen, where various dishes were in different stages of preparation. "Since you are finally here, you can help with the gravy." Just like that, I was assigned tasks while Tyler remained in the living room, entertaining everyone with stories about his latest business idea. Some things never changed. As a child, the contrast in how my parents treated us was subtle but unmistakable. When I brought home straight A's, my mother would nod and say, "That is what we expect." When Tyler brought home C's, there would be celebrations about how he was trying his best and how proud they were. I worked part-time jobs since turning 16, paying for my own clothes, my own car insurance, my own college application fees. Tyler got an allowance until he moved out at 22, along with a car my parents bought him for his 18th birthday. The memory of my college graduation stung particularly sharp. I had graduated summa cum laude from MIT with a computer science degree, a feat that had taken immense dedication and hard work. My parents had claimed they could not make it because my father had thrown his back out. I later discovered through Facebook photos that they had attended one of Tyler's intramural football games that same weekend. Dinner was finally ready, and we all gathered around the table. The conversation started innocently enough surface-level questions about Seattle weather and my apartment. "So, Gail," Aunt Judy began with genuine interest, "tell us about your work. Your mom mentioned you got a promotion recently." "Yes, I am now leading a team developing new security protocols," I explained, trying to keep it simple enough for everyone to understand. "It is challenging but rewarding work." "That sounds very technical," my mother interjected with a dismissive wave. "Not sure any of us would understand all that computer jargon." "It is not that complicated," I started to explain, but Tyler cut me off. Speaking of business, he jumped in, "I have been developing this amazing concept for a mobile app that connects local artists with venues. It is going to revolutionize the local music scene." And just like that, my accomplishment was brushed aside in favor of my brother's latest pipe dream. My father leaned forward with interest, asking questions about market research and implementation that he had never bothered to ask about my career. "Tyler has such an entrepreneurial spirit," my mother beamed. "He just needs the right opportunity to really show his potential." I bit my tongue and took a large gulp of wine. The pattern was so familiar it was almost comforting in its predictability. "So, Gail," my cousin Jessica asked, "are you seeing anyone special in Seattle?" Another loaded question. My family had strong opinions about my perpetual single status, as if being 29 and unmarried was some sort of personal failure. "I am focusing on my career right now," I replied, the standard answer that never satisfied anyone. "You know you are not getting any younger," my mother chimed in, "and Seattle is full of successful men in the tech industry. Surely you must meet some at work." "I meet plenty of people, Mom. I am just not rushing into anything." "Well, do not wait too long," she warned. "Your biological clock is ticking." I noticed Uncle Frank shifting uncomfortably in his seat. He caught my eye and gave me a sympathetic look. He had always seen through the family dynamic, though he rarely interfered. As dinner progressed, I noticed my mother's new jewelry again, along with my father's expensive watch that I had not seen before. For a couple who frequently called me with hints about financial struggles, they seemed to be doing remarkably well. The first time my parents asked me for money was during my sophomore year of college. I was working 2 jobs to cover expenses that my scholarships did not, barely sleeping between classes, work, and studying. The call came late on a Tuesday night. "Gail, honey," my mother had said, her voice tense. "We have a bit of an emergency here. The furnace broke down and we need $500 for the repair. Could you help us out just this once?" It was January in Michigan. A broken furnace was indeed an emergency. I transferred the money, immediately skipping meals for the next 2 weeks to make up for the shortfall in my budget. 2 months later, I saw Facebook photos of Tyler on spring break in Cancun. When I casually asked who had paid for the trip during our next call, my mother became defensive. "Your brother works so hard at school. He needed a break," she said. "Besides, we got a great deal on the package." It did not take much math to figure out where my furnace repair money had actually gone. That was just the beginning. Throughout the years, the requests came with increasing frequency. "Tyler's car broke down and he needs it for his new job. Could you help with the repair bill? It is just $800. The bank is being difficult about the mortgage payment this month. We just need to bridge a small gap until your father's commission comes in. Tyler has this amazing business opportunity, but he needs some startup capital. You know how these things work in your industry." Each time I told myself it would be the last. Each time I convinced myself that maybe, just maybe, helping out would finally make them see me, appreciate me, love me equally. Each time I was disappointed. None of the loans were ever repaid. Worse, they were never acknowledged again after the money changed hands. No thank you notes, no mentions during family calls, no attempts to return even a portion of what they had borrowed. The pattern continued even after I moved to Seattle and established my career. The physical distance made it easier to decline sometimes, but the emotional manipulation intensified. Statements like, "Family takes care of family," and "We would do the same for you," became common refrains. The breaking point should have come when I discovered my parents had remortgaged their house to fund Tyler's second failed business venture, only to call me in panic 6 months later when they could not make the payments. I had transferred $20,000, nearly emptying my savings at the time, telling myself it was to keep a roof over my parents' heads, not to bail out my brother again. Even that was not the end. As my career advanced and my financial situation improved, the requests grew larger. The implied expectation that my success meant I was responsible for the entire family's welfare became increasingly difficult to bear. As I sat at the Thanksgiving table watching my brother dominate the conversation with tales of his latest brilliant idea, I recognized the familiar pattern forming again. The casual mentions of startup costs, the pointed comments about my lucrative tech job, my mother's sighs about the challenges of making ends meet, despite her designer clothes and new jewelry. Tyler has been networking with some really influential people in the music scene. My father was saying, pride evident in his voice. His app idea has gotten some real interest. Just need some initial investment to get it off the ground. Tyler added, his eyes sliding to me momentarily. It must be nice having a solid, reliable job, my mother said, looking directly at me. Not everyone has that security. The table fell silent for a moment, the implication hanging in the air. I took another sip of wine, wondering if anyone else noticed the manipulation, or if it was just glaringly obvious to me after years of therapy. How much are you making now at that big tech company, Gail? Tyler asked bluntly, abandoning all pretense. Tyler, Aunt Judy admonished gently, that is a rather personal question. What? We are family, he defended. No secrets among family, right, Gail? Uncle Frank cleared his throat. How about those Lions? Think they have a chance this season? His attempt to change the subject went ignored as my mother leaned forward. You know, Gail family supports each other. When one of us succeeds, we all benefit. That is how we raised you. Is it, I wanted to ask? Because I remembered being raised very differently than Tyler. I remembered paying my own way through everything while watching him receive endless support, both financial and emotional. Your cousin Jessica helped her brother start his landscaping business, my mother continued. Now it employs 6 people. Family investment makes all the difference. What she conveniently left out was that Jessica's brother had repaid every penny with interest and had given Jessica partial ownership of the now successful business. I felt the familiar pressure building, the expectation that I would open my wallet yet again. But something was different this time. Perhaps it was the 3 years of distance and therapy. Perhaps it was seeing the stark contrast between their claims of financial hardship and their obvious prosperity. Whatever it was, I felt a strange calm settling over me as I realized I was done being the family ATM. The conversation had taken a predictable turn toward Tyler's latest venture, and I could feel the familiar tension headache beginning at my temples. My brother's animated descriptions of his music app grew more enthusiastic with each passing minute. The thing is, Tyler said, leaning forward with excitement, this app would connect local artists directly with venue owners. No more middlemen taking huge cuts. Artists get more money, venues fill more seats, everyone wins. That sounds fascinating, my father said, nodding approvingly. Very innovative thinking, son. I have already talked to some developers about building the prototype, Tyler continued, and I have lined up meetings with several venue owners who are interested in the concept. Such initiative, my mother beamed, reaching over to pat his hand affectionately. Always thinking outside the box. I focused on my mashed potatoes, trying to tune out the familiar dynamic. 3 years away had done nothing to change it. The only thing holding me back right now is the initial capital, Tyler said, his voice dropping into a more serious tone. Development costs are higher than I expected. Quality programmers do not come cheap. I felt every eye at the table shift toward me. The programmer in the family, the one with the steady paycheck. How much are you looking at for development costs? Uncle Frank asked, his tone neutral but his eyes calculating. Tyler cleared his throat. Well, for a proper MVP with all the features I want to include, around $50,000. I nearly choked on my wine. $50,000 for an app that sounded like dozens already on the market. I kept my expression neutral, years of practice coming in handy. That seems reasonable for app development these days. My father nodded sagely, as though he had any idea what app development should cost. Gail would know more about that, though, Aunt Judy said innocently, pouring gasoline on the fire. What do you think, Gail? Does that sound right for what Tyler is describing? All attention swiveled to me. I carefully set down my wine glass, buying time. It depends on the complexity and features. Some apps can be developed for much less, some for much more. Well, this would be top quality, Tyler insisted. I want to do it right the first time. Unlike his previous ventures, I thought but did not say. Speaking of your work, Gail, my mother interjected smoothly, your father and I were just telling the Johnsons next door about your promotion. Senior software engineer, is it? At one of those big tech companies that are always in the news for making billions. It is actually lead security engineer, I corrected gently. And yes, the company is doing well. Lead position, my mother exclaimed as if hearing it for the first time, though I had told her twice before. That must come with quite the salary bump. Here it comes, I thought. You know, my father joined in, with your expertise in the industry and Tyler's innovative concept, you two could really create something special together. Keep it in the family. I am not really familiar with music industry apps, I deflected. My work focuses on security protocols. But you know people surely, my mother pressed. Developers who might give a family discount. Or you could just help out directly, Tyler suggested, abandoning all pretense. A small investment from you could make all the difference, and you would get returns once we start making money. Just like I had gotten returns on every other investment in his ventures. I took a deep breath, trying to remain calm. I am really focused on my own financial goals right now, I said carefully. Saving for my future, maybe a house in Seattle. A house, my mother scoffed. In this economy that is years away, Tyler's opportunity is now. Family should come first, my father added. We always taught you kids that. The double standard was so blatant it was almost laughable. When had my needs ever come first in this family? When I was saving for college, you told me I needed to be independent, I reminded them quietly. That was different, my mother dismissed. That was for your education. And this is for Tyler's education, my father added. The School of Entrepreneurship. Everyone chuckled as if he had said something profoundly wise. I felt something shift inside me, a quiet anger that had been simmering for years, threatening to boil over. You know, Gail, my mother said, her voice taking on the guilt-inducing tone I knew so well. You hardly ever call or visit anymore. 3 years without coming home for Thanksgiving. Meanwhile, Tyler calls us every Sunday, keeps us involved in his life. Calls every Sunday to report on his latest financial crisis, I thought. We just wish you were more involved with the family, she continued. More supportive. I send birthday and Christmas gifts, I pointed out. I call on holidays. Gifts and calls are nice, my father said, but family is about being there for each other in meaningful ways. Meaningful ways like financial support, Tyler clarified in case I had somehow missed their point. You have been so blessed with your career success, my mother added. The Bible says to whom much is given, much is required. Using scripture to manipulate me was a new low even for her. I set down my fork, my appetite completely gone. So what do you think? Tyler asked, leaning forward eagerly. About investing in my app? $50,000 would get us through development and initial marketing. $50,000. More than all their previous loans combined. Money I had been saving for a down payment on a house. Money that would disappear into the black hole of Tyler's entrepreneurial dreams, never to be seen again. I will have to think about it, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. What is there to think about? My mother asked, her tone hardening. It is your brother, your family. Financial decisions require thought, I replied, feeling the first threads of my composure beginning to unravel. Jessica did not need to think when her brother needed help, my mother pointed out, bringing up my cousin again as the family gold standard. Jessica's brother had a business plan collateral and repaid her with interest. I finally said, unable to let the false comparison stand. The table went quiet for a moment. Are you saying Tyler is a bad investment? My mother asked, her voice dangerously soft. I am saying I need to consider my own financial security. Your security? Tyler scoffed. You make 6 figures at a major tech company, which I worked incredibly hard to achieve, I reminded him. with zero help from anyone. Here we go again, my mother sighed dramatically. The self-made success story who pulled herself up by her bootstraps. While some people, my father added, looking at me pointedly, forget where they came from once they find success. I felt my cheeks burning, years of pent-up frustration threatening to explode. But I held it in as I always did. Keep the peace. Do not make a scene. Be the bigger person. We have always been there for you, Gail. My mother continued rewriting history with breathtaking confidence. When you needed help with college applications, when you needed advice about your career. And now when your brother needs a little help suddenly, you are too busy and important to care about family. I stared at her, genuinely wondering if she believed her own revisionist history. My college applications that I researched and completed entirely on my own. The career that I had built despite their complete lack of interest or support. I am not saying no, I said carefully. I am just saying I need to think about it. What is there to think about? My mother repeated, her frustration mounting. Do you care about this family or not? Of course I do, but what your brother has a chance to create something amazing here, something that could support him for years to come. All he needs is a little help getting started. A little help meaning $50,000, I clarified. You make that in what, a few months, Tyler said dismissively. Meanwhile, I am trying to build something from nothing. The unfairness of it all hit me like a physical blow. All the years of working multiple jobs, of sacrificing, of putting myself through college, while watching Tyler receive endless support and encouragement. All the times I had sent money home, emptying my own accounts to fill theirs. All for what? To be told I was not doing enough, that I did not care enough. I think what your mother is trying to say, my father interjected in his placating tone, is that family supports each other. You are in a position to help Gail. It is the right thing to do. The right thing to do, I repeated quietly. Yes, my mother said firmly. That is how we raised you, to do the right thing for family. Something inside me snapped at that moment. The carefully constructed dam holding back years of hurt and resentment developed a hairline crack. How you raised me? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Yes, my mother said, missing the warning signs, to value family above all else. The crack widened. Frankly, Gail, my mother continued, her voice taking on the disappointed tone that had controlled me for most of my life. I am surprised at your hesitation, after all we have done for you, after all the sacrifices we made for your education. The dam broke. Sacrifices? I echoed, my voice surprisingly steady. What sacrifices exactly? Now, Gail, my father warned. No, I want to know, I insisted. What sacrifices did you make for my education? The education I paid for entirely on my own, through scholarships and working multiple jobs. We supported you emotionally, my mother said, her tone defensive. Did you? When you missed my college graduation to attend Tyler's intramural football game? Your father's back was out, she protested. His back was fine enough for him to sit on bleachers cheering for Tyler, I countered, pulling out my phone to show the Facebook photos I had saved all these years. You both just decided his game was more important than the biggest achievement of my life. The table fell silent. Aunt Judy looked genuinely shocked, and I realized my parents had probably told the family a different story about why they missed my graduation. That is ancient history, my mother dismissed. The point is, I interrupted, shocking even myself, that you have never treated Tyler and me equally. Ever. He got allowances, I got after-school jobs. He got a car, I got bus passes. He got constant praise, I got constant criticism. That is not true, my father protested weakly. It is absolutely true, I said, my voice gaining strength. And now, after years of being your personal bank, after sending money home time and again for emergencies that mysteriously coincided with Tyler's wants, I am supposed to hand over my house down payment because family comes first. When did I ever come first in this family? My mother's face flushed with anger, her eyes narrowing. How dare you speak to us this way after all we have done for you? You have always been selfish, always been cold, always been… She paused, searching for the most hurtful thing she could say. and then she found it. You are the most useless kid we have. The dining room went completely silent. Forks stopped midway to mouths. Glasses remained suspended in the air. Every eye at the table widened in shock at my mother's words. Useless. The word hung in the air between us, sharp and cutting. For a split second, I felt like that 16-year-old girl again, desperate for any crumb of parental approval, willing to work myself to exhaustion, just to hear one word of praise that never came. But I was not 16 anymore. I was 29, successful, independent. 3 years of therapy had taught me that I was not defined by their perception of me, that their inability to appreciate me was their failure, not mine. I slowly placed my napkin on the table and stood up. My chair scraped against the hardwood floor, the sound deafening in the silence. Then stop calling me every time you need money. The words came out clear and steady, surprising even me with their calm delivery. My mother's face changed instantly, shock replacing anger as her jaw literally dropped. My father's face drained of color. Tyler suddenly became very interested in his plate. "Excuse me." My mother managed her voice barely audible. "You heard me." I continued, feeling a strange sense of calm wash over me. "If I am so useless, then stop calling me every time you need money. Stop calling me when the mortgage is late. Stop calling me when Tyler needs bailout money for his failed business ventures. Stop calling me when you want a new car or jewelry, but do not want to dip into your own savings." I reached into my purse and pulled out a folder I had brought with me, one that I had debated even bringing to Thanksgiving dinner. It contained bank statements, transfer receipts, and a spreadsheet detailing every loan I had given my family over the years, along with the supposed purposes and the actual uses I later discovered. "Let us talk about exactly how useless I have been to this family," I said, opening the folder and laying it on the table. "Gail, this is hardly the time or place," my father protested weakly. "I disagree," I replied. "Thanksgiving seems like the perfect time to review exactly what I have to be thankful for in this family relationship." I pulled out the first page. August 2015, $500 for an emergency furnace repair that mysteriously coincided with Tyler's spring break trip to Cancun. My mother's face flushed. "That was December 2016. I continued, pulling out another statement. $800 for Tyler's car repair that was actually used to pay off his gambling debts. Tyler looked up sharply. "How did you know about that?" "I have ears, Tyler. And friends who saw you at the casino the weekend before your car mysteriously broke down." I continued through the list methodically. March 2017, $2,000 for property taxes that funded Mom's spa weekend with her friends. June 2018, $5,000 for roof repairs that never happened, but Dad got a new set of golf clubs that month. With each example, my parents' expressions shifted from outrage to embarrassment to something approaching shame. The extended family at the table looked increasingly uncomfortable, exchanging glances that told me they had no idea about any of this. "And the biggest one," I said, pulling out the final statement, $20,000 in 2020 to help with mortgage payments after you remortgaged the house to fund Tyler's food truck idea that lasted exactly 3 months before he got bored and abandoned it. I laid down the spreadsheet that totaled everything. $47,835 over 8 years. Not a penny repaid. Not even acknowledged after the money changed hands. And that does not even count all the gifts, the plane tickets home I purchased, the times I covered family vacation expenses. I looked directly at my mother. "So please tell me again how I am the most useless kid you have." My mother opened her mouth, closed it, then opened it again. For perhaps the first time in her life, she was speechless. Uncle Frank cleared his throat. "Sarah, is this true, all of it?" My mother shot him a look of betrayal. "This is a family matter, Frank." "We are family," he pointed out quietly. "And I had no idea Gail had been supporting you all to this extent." "She has not been supporting us," my father protested. "These were temporary loans during difficult times." "Loans are repaid," I pointed out. "These were gifts that were extracted through emotional manipulation and never acknowledged again." "You make it sound so calculated," my mother said, finding her voice at last. "We are your parents. We raised you, fed you, clothed you. Yes, you did the legal minimum required of parents. I agreed. And in return, I have given you far more than was ever required of a child. And yet, it is never enough. This is so unfair, Tyler interjected, his face flushed with anger or embarrassment, I could not tell which. You are making it sound like we are using you. Aren't you? I asked simply. When was the last time either of you called me just to see how I was doing? Not to hint about money, not to complain about finances, not to tell me about Tyler's latest scheme that needs funding. Just to check on me, your daughter. The silence was telling. That is what I thought, I said quietly. I am not useless to this family. I am extremely useful as a source of funding. I am just useless when it comes to being valued as a person. My mother's expression hardened, her initial shock giving way to defensive anger. This is absurd. We have always loved you, Gail. Just because we do not constantly praise your every accomplishment like some participation trophy parent. This is not about praise, I interrupted. This is about basic respect and fairness. It is about acknowledging that I am not your personal bank account. No one said you were, my father protested. No one had to say it, I replied. Actions speak louder than words, and your actions have made it perfectly clear what my role is in this family. I gathered up my documentation and returned it to my purse. So, no, Tyler, I will not be investing $50,000 in your music app. I will not be sending money for Christmas this year. I will not be covering any more emergencies that mysteriously align with vacations or luxury purchases. I looked around the table at my extended family, many of whom were seeing this dynamic for the first time. I am sorry that this conversation had to happen during Thanksgiving dinner. I truly am. But I am not sorry for finally standing up for myself. My mother stood up, her face a mask of righteous indignation. How dare you embarrass us like this in front of everyone? After all we have sacrificed for you. What exactly have you sacrificed, Mom? I asked genuinely. Please name one thing you have ever sacrificed for me. Her silence was deafening. That is what I thought, I said, picking up my purse. I think I will be going now. Thank you for dinner. As I turned to leave, Tyler called out, So that is it? You are just going to walk out on your family because we asked for a little help. I turned back, meeting his eyes steadily. $50,000 is not a little help, Tyler. And yes, I am walking out because for once I am choosing myself over this toxic dynamic. I nodded to my aunt and uncle. It was good to see you all. I am sorry it ended this way. As I walked toward the door, I heard chairs scraping behind me. I half expected it to be my parents following to continue the argument, but it was Uncle Frank who caught up to me on the front porch. Gail, wait, he called, his voice gentle. I paused, bracing myself for a lecture about respecting my parents. Instead, he said, I had no idea, kiddo. None of us did. I turned to face him, surprised to see genuine concern in his eyes. It is okay, Uncle Frank. It has been building for a long time. They should not have treated you that way, he said firmly. And for what it is worth, I am incredibly proud of what you have accomplished. MIT lead security engineer. That is amazing, Gail. Truly amazing. Tears pricked at my eyes at his simple acknowledgement of my achievements. How sad that such basic recognition could mean so much. Thank you, I managed to say around the lump in my throat. He hesitated, then added, I know this is not the time, but they have done the same to me. Not to the same extent, but there have been loans that were never repaid, investments in Tyler's ventures that disappeared. I just never had the courage to say anything. I was stunned. Really, I had no idea. He nodded. Your mother has always been skilled at making people feel obligated, and your father goes along with whatever keeps the peace. I am sorry, Uncle Frank. Do not be sorry, he said firmly. Be proud. You stood up not just for yourself today, but for anyone who has ever been taken advantage of by family and guilted into silence. He gave me a quick hug. Take care of yourself, Gail, and stay in touch, okay, directly with me, not through your parents. I will, I promised. As I drove back to my hotel, the full weight of what had just happened began to sink in. My phone buzzed repeatedly with incoming texts and calls, but I ignored them all. I needed time to process, to breathe, to acknowledge both the grief and the strange sense of liberation I was feeling. For the first time in my adult life, I had spoken my truth to my family. The wall of silence and compliance had been broken, and whatever happened next, I knew I could never go back to being their silent ATM again. And oddly enough, that felt like something to be thankful for. My phone continued buzzing with notifications as I entered my hotel room and sank onto the bed. Finally, I gathered the courage to look at the messages flooding in. From Mom. I cannot believe you would humiliate us like this in front of everyone. Call me immediately so we can discuss your behavior. From Dad. Your mother is very upset. You owe her an apology. From Tyler. Way to ruin Thanksgiving. Real mature sis. Predictable reactions, all of them focused on their feelings, their embarrassment with no acknowledgement of the actual issues I had raised. But there were other messages too. From Aunt Judy. I had no idea, Gail. I am so sorry we never saw what was happening. Please know not all of us think of you that way. From Cousin Jessica. That took serious courage. Respect. And a longer one from Uncle Frank. Proud of you for speaking your truth today. Family should lift each other up, not drain each other dry. You are worth more than what you can provide financially. Never forget that. I sat with my phone in my hands, tears streaming down my face. Not tears of regret or shame, but tears of release. Years of pent-up hurt and resentment finally acknowledged and expressed. Years of playing a role that was slowly killing me, finally shed. I turned off my phone and took a long, hot shower, letting the water wash away the tension of the day. When I emerged, I felt lighter somehow, as though I had set down a heavy burden I had been carrying for too long. I ordered room service, a completely different Thanksgiving meal than the one I had left behind, and ate it while watching mindless television. No family drama, no passive-aggressive comments, no financial manipulation. Just peace and quiet, and the freedom to simply exist without justifying my worth. That night, I slept better than I had in years, without the usual knot of anxiety that accompanied family interactions. In the morning, I changed my flight to return to Seattle a day early. There was nothing left for me to do here. Before leaving, I sent one group text to my parents and brother. I meant what I said. I love you all, but I will no longer be providing financial support. I hope someday we can build a healthier relationship based on mutual respect, rather than what I can give you. Until then, I need some space. Then I blocked their numbers, knowing they would try to wear me down with calls and messages. It was a temporary measure just until I felt strong enough to engage without being pulled back into old patterns. On the flight back to Seattle, I stared out the window at the clouds below, feeling both grief and freedom intermingled. I was mourning the family I had always wished for, but never had, while simultaneously celebrating my liberation from toxic expectations. As the weeks passed, the messages from my parents and brother continued to arrive via email following a predictable pattern. First anger and accusations, then guilt trips about family loyalty, then reluctant acknowledgments of mistakes made on both sides, and finally inevitably subtle hints about financial situations that a loving daughter might want to help address. I read them all but responded to none. Instead, I focused on rebuilding my life without the constant drain of family financial emergencies. I put the money I would have sent home back into my house down payment fund. I started seeing my therapist twice a week to work through the complex emotions of setting boundaries with family. And I stayed in touch with Uncle Frank and Aunt Judy, building healthier family connections that were based on genuine interest in each other's lives, rather than what we could provide materially. 3 months after Thanksgiving, I received a letter from my mother. Not an email, but an actual handwritten letter, something so unusual that I almost did not recognize her handwriting on the envelope. Inside was not the apology I might have hoped for, but something almost more valuable: honesty. I do not know how to be a mother who does not control everything, she wrote. Your father and I grew up with so little. When Tyler struggled, it felt natural to help him to make his path easier. When you succeeded so easily at everything, we thought you did not need us. Perhaps we resented that a little. It was easier to ask for your help than to admit we had nothing to offer someone as capable as you. It was not an apology. but it was an acknowledgement, however small, that the dynamic had been unhealthy. It was a start. I wrote back a careful, measured response, making it clear that while I was open to rebuilding our relationship, the financial aspect was permanently closed. "I want to be your daughter," I wrote, "not your bank." Meanwhile, Tyler had apparently taken my confrontation to heart in an unexpected way. Uncle Frank reported that my brother had gotten an actual job for the first time in years, working at a music venue where he could learn the industry from the ground up rather than trying to revolutionize it without experience. "He tells everyone he is researching for his app," Uncle Frank told me during one of our weekly calls. "But between you and me, I think he actually enjoys having a regular paycheck and some structure." 6 months after Thanksgiving, I put an offer on a small but perfect house in Seattle, using the money I had saved instead of sending it home to fund Tyler's ventures. When the offer was accepted, I felt a surge of pride knowing that this achievement was truly mine, not something I had delayed or sacrificed for someone else's benefit. It is remarkable how much can change in 6 months. As I sit in my new Seattle home watching the sunset paint Mount Rainier in shades of pink and gold, I barely recognize the person I was at that Thanksgiving table. The journey has not been easy. Setting boundaries never is, especially with family who have spent decades establishing unhealthy patterns. There were moments of doubt, nights spent staring at the ceiling wondering if I had done the right thing, days when the silence from my parents felt like an unbearable weight. Therapy became my lifeline during those early months. My therapist, Dr. Lynn, helped me understand that the guilt I felt was programmed into me, a control mechanism that had kept me compliant for years. "Guilt is the emotional tax you pay for putting yourself first after a lifetime of putting others first," she told me. "It will fade as you learn that prioritizing your well-being is not just acceptable, but necessary." She was right. Each week, the guilt lessened. Each time I put money into my savings account without wondering who would ask for it next, I felt a little more secure, a little more in control of my own life. My relationship with Uncle Frank blossomed into something I never expected. Having an actual ally in the family who validated my experiences and supported my boundaries made all the difference. Our Sunday phone calls became a highlight of my week, conversations filled with genuine interest in each other's lives without any hidden agendas. "Your mother asked about you again," he reported during our last call. "No mentions of money this time, just wanted to know if you were doing well." It was progress, small but significant. Aunt Judy, too, had become a regular correspondent, sending chatty emails about family news and her gardening projects. She had taken my stand at Thanksgiving as permission to establish her own boundaries with my mother, her domineering older sister. "You gave me courage," she wrote in one email. "After 60 years, I finally told Sarah no when she demanded I change my vacation plans to accommodate hers." Even Tyler was changing, according to Uncle Frank's reports. The job at the music venue had turned into a promotion to assistant manager. He had started dating one of the bartenders, a no-nonsense woman who, in Uncle Frank's words, does not put up with any of his entitled behavior. He was learning slowly but surely that the world did not owe him success simply for showing up. My parents were the slowest to adjust to the new reality. After the initial letter from my mother, communication had been sparse and strained. My father sent occasional text messages about neutral topics, the weather, a new restaurant in town, a movie he had seen. My mother's communications were less frequent, but more significant. Small acknowledgments of past mistakes wrapped in casual observations. "Found your old science fair trophy in the attic," she wrote in her most recent email. "First place, 8th grade. I do not think I ever told you how impressive that was, creating a working solar cell from household materials. I should have." I responded to these overtures with cautious openness, maintaining my boundaries while leaving the door cracked for a potentially healthier relationship in the future. The most profound change, however, was within myself. Without the constant drain of financial and emotional demands from my family, I discovered parts of myself that had been suppressed for years. I joined a hiking club and discovered a love for wilderness backpacking. I took a pottery class and found it wonderfully therapeutic to create something with my hands after spending all day in the digital realm. I made new friends, people who valued me for who I was rather than what I could provide. Most importantly, I developed a healthier relationship with money and generosity. I set up monthly donations to educational charities that helped underprivileged students pursue STEM careers. I volunteered as a mentor for young women in tech. I helped a coworker through a medical crisis by organizing meal deliveries and hospital visits. I discovered that I was naturally generous when that generosity was freely given rather than extracted through manipulation. The joy of giving without expectation of return or recognition was a revelation. Last week, my friend Jasmine needed help moving to a new apartment after a difficult breakup. I not only helped her move, but also covered the security deposit when her ex backed out of their financial agreement at the last minute. "I will pay you back as soon as I can," she promised tearfully. "I know you will," I told her, "but take your time. This is what friends do for each other." And I meant it. Because true generosity comes with no strings attached, no power dynamic, no expectation of eternal gratitude or obligation. It is simply recognizing another person's need and helping if you can, without diminishing their dignity in the process. That Thanksgiving confrontation had initially felt like an ending the death of my family relationships as I had known them. Instead, it proved to be a beginning. The start of authenticity, of mutual respect of relationships based on genuine connection rather than utility. I am under no illusions that the transformation is complete or permanent. Old patterns have a way of reasserting themselves during times of stress or crisis. My parents may never fully understand or accept the new boundaries. Tyler may slide back into his entitled expectations when his current job loses its novelty. But I have changed fundamentally and permanently. I will never again allow my worth to be measured by what I can provide materially. I will never again empty my accounts to fill the bottomless pit of someone else's wants. I will never again sacrifice my future for someone who cannot acknowledge my present. Standing up at that Thanksgiving table was the most difficult thing I have ever done. It was also the most necessary. In that moment of raw honesty, I reclaimed not just my financial independence, but my very sense of self. We all face these crossroads moments in life, times when we must choose between comfortable patterns that slowly destroy us and difficult truths that initially hurt, but ultimately heal. The path of least resistance rarely leads to growth. It is in the moments of greatest discomfort that we often find our true strength. So if you are watching this and recognizing your own family dynamics in my story, know that you are not alone. Know that your worth is not determined by what you can give others. Know that setting boundaries is not selfish, but essential. Family should be about mutual support, not one-way extraction. Love should lift you up, not drain you dry. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for both yourself and others is to simply say, enough. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more stories about finding strength in difficult situations. And remember, sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is simply no. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you courage on your own journey to healthy boundaries and self-worth.